Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Furkan, product designer working in London. In this video, I'm going to walk through my top 5 tips of things you should know before starting off as a product designer. Tips I wish I had earlier on in my career as I started off as a product designer. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe for future design related videos, and let's get started. The first tip I'd like to talk about is the design tool that you use is the least of your problems. Do not be concerned that, oh, my team's using Sketch or Adobe XD, everyone's using Figma. Honestly, that is the least of your worries. If you're starting off in design, you should be focusing on building your problem solving skills, as these are way more transferable. You should be understanding how to build your skills as a designer in terms of product thinking, improving your visual design skills, understand how to articulate your design rationale in design critiques. You should be able to understand how to make user flows and working closely with researchers, maybe even taking part in these interviews. You should be focusing on your hard skills as a designer that transfer over your career, because design tools, they come and go. When I started off in design, everyone was raving about Sketch. Previous to this, people were using Photoshop. Now I'm using Figma. In 5 years time, it probably won't be Figma, but what will stay and constantly stay with me is my design skills of problem solving effectively, and I can be able to articulate working with cross-functional partners and communicating effectively my design rationale and decision making. These are skills you should be focusing on. Don't worry about what the tools your teams are using. This is the least of your problems. Tools, they come and go. They're useful to pick up, and some of the skills they transfer over to the newer tools, but don't worry about the tools your team use. I was worried at the start of my career that my team were using Sketch, everyone was on Figma. The reality is that I should have been focusing more on my hard skills as a designer. So the next tip I'd like to talk about is the importance of there's no such thing as a perfect design process. A lot of people talk about the double diamond process. You do not have to follow this strictly. I haven't been on a project where there's this perfect design process you follow. The reason being is because depending on your company and the team you're inside your company, there's gonna be a different design process, because the best design process is the one that fits your team more effectively. Every team has different objectives, different resource and budget sizes, and everyone has different legal and technical internal politics and constraints they have to deal with as well. You might be working on a project that's more of a 0 to 1 concept project, or you could be working on an app that's used by millions of people and you're just improving an existing feature, or you could be working on a brand new feature. Reality is that the double diamond process doesn't work effectively on all of these unique needs of teams and projects. So the best process is the one that works effectively in your team. I always thought when starting off as a designer, oh, my team's not following this perfect process, we're not doing enough research at the start of a project. Reality is there might be teams where there's not enough budget to do research at the start of a project. You might not have data scientists on your team, so you won't be able to make data informed decisions at the start of your project. You might not have time to do research at the start, and all of this is fine, because every project there's a different learning inside it, and there's no such thing as a perfect design process. You can learn effectively and be open depending on the team you're on. The next tip I'm going to talk about is worth its weight in gold. The better you get at this earlier on in your career, the easier you'll find designing will be. And this is learning how to communicate effectively with stakeholder management and back channeling. Stakeholder management is so important. It's something I definitely underestimated. This is basically when you come into a big meeting with all your stakeholders, it's learning how to articulate your designs effectively, learning to get sign off before you even get into that meeting. So you've back channeled with the product marketing manager, the product manager, the engineers. Before you've gone in that meeting, you've already got sign off, or you've shown people your story of your work, your design rationale and thinking, so nothing unexpected happens. And this is so important. Learning stakeholder management is so key. there's a lot of politics that happens at work, and learning to navigate this and learning how to effectively communicate your design rationale is going to be so important. It's not always going to be what you want when it comes to design, when it comes to, oh, I really want this direction, but reality is you need to learn how to manage conflicts and interests and effectively manage with different stakeholders. There's going to be strong voices in a room, and it's learning about, as a designer, how do I navigate around these and how do I effectively tell my story effectively. And stakeholder management is so important. I've worked with some other stakeholders are so good at, before getting into meeting, about how to basically manage other stakeholders that might come across as really fiery or very, I suppose, demanding. But if you learn how to deal with this as a designer, you'll be able to really progress in your career with ease. The next tip I'm going to talk about is the importance of having a mentor. And regardless of how earlier on you're in your career, don't ever underestimate the importance of having a mentor, whether it's inside the company you're working at or externally. I prefer and recommend having someone that's more external, that's not directly working in your team, so they have less of a bias and you'll be able to speak more freely and openly about your ideas of what's on your mind. And a mentor can really help you grow and spot those gaps or skills that you need to be developing, and will help you throughout your career take you to that next level and step. It's probably one of the best investments you can make throughout your career, and it's definitely helped me out and throughout my career to get me to where I am right now, and hopefully to elevate me in the future where I want to be as well. Never underestimate the importance of having a mentor. So one of the last tips I'm going to talk about, and it's a really important tip, and it's not to get too emotionally attached to your designs. And what I mean by this is that you've been designing for weeks on a certain direction and you're really confident and happy with how it looks, where you present this in a crit or you do some usability testing and someone tells you some feedback or it's not quite working, and you could get really frustrated by this. And this happened to me a lot earlier on in my career, but reality is you shouldn't be so emotionally attached to one direction, and it's learning how to basically effectively move quickly with different directions and learning how to iterate and move on. And this is a key skill in itself. Don't get too emotionally invested in your design. At the end of the day, things are gonna iterate and improve, and a lot of feedback comes from a good place as well. And learning to basically not be too emotionally attached means that when you do have to change direction or move on to a different design, it's easier. Everyone's been there where you've invested a lot of time and effort into something, and then you get upset when you have to basically move on to a different direction due to technical constraints or something happened in research, and that's fine. But learn how to effectively move past this and get over this a lot quicker as you get more senior in your career is a really effective tip. So don't get too emotionally invested into a design in general. Remember also that don't let this emotional investment affect your outside life as well, because there's more to life than just designing and that screen. Like, it can get really fickle and there's way more bigger problems that you'll have to deal with outside of work. So learn to just chill out, relax, and be more sane when it comes to your design rationale thinking, and be open to move in different directions, whether that's left or more far right. Be open to this and be responsive. So the last bonus tip I really want to quickly talk about is learning to effectively communicate with your writing, and this is so important. So communication is so important in design. A lot of these tips are around this, and being able to write effectively can really help you a lot, especially with a world where it's hybrid working or remote first. So being able to write effectively can help you a lot with asynchronous communication. Being able to articulate the points of what your design is saying through an email or through a workplace or Slack message clearly, so people will be able to read this with ease and understand what's trying to go on here. Being able to use numbered bullet points, using plain English, so anyone will be able to pick up this and understand your thinking. Writing is so important. It helps also boost your critical thinking skills, so you'll be able to not only become better in terms of like your design thinking skills and your product thinking skills, you'll be able to communicate more effectively to your team as well, giving them those updates of what's going on, and they'll be able to have different channels to understand what is going on, not just relying on meetings. They'll be able to see some of your posts you've been making. So leverage writing and take up some of those opportunities where you can when it comes to boosting your writing skills. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I hope you found some of these tips useful. Be sure to comment down below your favourite tip, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe for future design related videos, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out.